Welcome back to day 3 here at the FACEIT Global Summit, where today we're wrapping up the group stage with Group A returning to take on Group C. Today we'll find out which 8 teams will be heading straight to our grand finals this weekend, and which 16 will be duking it out in our elimination stage tomorrow. And if you want to come and witness all the action for yourself at the ICC Auditorium at the XL London, head to faceitglobalsummit.com to secure your tickets for tomorrow's elimination stage and our grand finals this weekend.
Welcome to the FACEIT Global Summit. I'm Frankie Ward, and for once, I'm not alone. I've got a sidekick in the form of Scoom, because he has got so much experience on the international stage. You might remember him picking up second in both of the tournaments at PGI Berlin, and now he's playing for Team Reciprocity and picked up second in PEL Contenders. So there's no one better, really, to ask about the international meta, Scoom. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the global events are always so many mixed regions. People are not used to playing different loot spots, so the meta kind of shifts back and forth to know exactly what's going on.
And which region is dominating here?
I don't think any region is pretty much dominating. I think EU and NA are both consistently placing well in this tournament, and I think China and Korea is a bit more like in balance, like one team is doing really well and the others are not doing that great. So overall, it seems a little bit balanced. There's no real dominator region.
And yet it seems so much more aggressive than I was expecting. Maybe Tempo Storm are playing the most passive of all, but is this something to do with the universal rule set? Because kills are so important.
Yeah, for sure. Since they introduced the new super settings where the kills are really important, 1 point per kill and 10 points for a win, teams are tending to be more aggressive because they know that those kills are so handy, specifically when you don't get circles, and it's like instead of going into the next zone, you just like fight around, and you see that a lot nowadays.
And which team has impressed you the most?
The team has impressed me the most right now. It's probably 17 Gaming. Like in terms of their team fighting, they're just like, whenever I've seen them in a team fight, they just seem to win it a lot. They tend to struggle a bit on the positioning side, but if they manage to tackle that down, I feel like they're going to be one of the strongest teams.
The thing about 17 Gaming is I don't really remember them in terms of aim, but I remember them because of their nades. They're obsessed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of this tournament, is nades. There's been so many nades overall. Because the loot is increased, you're seeing teams actually pick a lot of them up, and it's been a lot of nade kills.
Do you think that's a good thing? Are you enjoying the nade action?
At the beginning, it was nice because in the old settings, we didn't see them that much utilized, but nowadays, it seems like it's a bit too much. I'd like to be a little bit toned down, but it's a nice change of pace every time, a different tournament, different meta.
I'm enjoying the fire, to be quite honest with you. Now, in terms of who's going to get through to the finals, there's 8 spots up for grabs. Surely NIP have already done it. Yeah,
NIP are like top 8 right now, and they're playing today. They're still in Group C, so for sure NIP are feeling really good. And they have always adapted well to the global meta, and they're showing up for sure. And then we have Liquid and C9, which will be really interesting today because there's no 17 Gaming fighting for Pachinki, so they're going to be clashing head-on, so those two teams I'm really interested in.
And something I learned about you this morning, Scoom, is that actually PUBG is a bit of a family thing. Your dad's a player.
Yeah, my dad, my whole family supports PUBG. They're always watching, even when I'm not even participating. They're watching the Pro League all the time. My mom loves it, my dad plays it, and my brother as well.
Well, actually, if you want to watch with your family, you can join us in the arena from tomorrow. We're finally letting the crowd in the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you can get your tickets at faceitglobalsummit.com. And if you are watching from home today, then let us know what you're thinking. Maybe your dad plays PUBG too. Let us know using the hashtag FACEITGlobalSummit. Before I let you go, you're coming back to us with Demon for the halftime show, so you're going to be backstage watching the feeds as they happen with the observers. Is there something you've particularly noticed as a trend that keeps happening?
I don't know too much about trend, but it's just interesting to be in the backstage with Demon watching the observers. This is my first time ever seeing the production from the back end, and it's just really impressive how good they are. Because PUBG is a really tough esport to cover because there's so much action going on, and the observers are just doing an amazing job.
And Svar and Wilhelm, they are basically the squad of my PUBG dreams, to be honest. That's a team I want to be on. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Scoom. There's another squad that's waiting upstairs on the desk, and they can't wait to talk about the matches today. So let's head over to Carlaris and his gang.
That's right. Welcome to the analysis desk here to break down all of the action that's going to be going on, not only in the past 2 days, but also in the upcoming 4 days as a whole. My name is indeed Kyle Larris, and to my right-hand side, I have Toffees and I have Avenger. Gentlemen, we're back once again. We've got more action to come. We've got A and C going head-to-head, and already we have seen clear standouts do very, very well, but some teams here also need to really try and step it up if they want to avoid that elimination stage.
Yeah, we're back. Group A is back. They have a little bit of a chance to watch everyone play yesterday, see how the games have evolved and come back in strong. I'm excited to see what they bring. We got a lot of teams who I think are in desperation mode. They know they're at the bottom of the bracket. They know that their points per game from the first time are just not good enough. This is their last chance to make moves.
For me, today is really interesting because there's two things to it. First, you want to try to maybe get into the top 8, so you go straight to the grand finals. Then the second thing is you want to get as many points as possible, so when you go into the sudden stage, then you're in the top pack, that you don't have to worry too much. You're not sitting in the bottom. You don't have to have a massive day to make sure of your survival going into the grand final as the kind of the mid-pack 8, because we only have 16 teams in the final.
Let's recap the guys at home about the format as a whole to tell you exactly how this breaks down. It is not your conventional tournament, it's the World Championship, and as such, we need to find our world champion in a pristine fashion. We enter with 24 teams. 8 of those have already completed all of their matches for the group stage, but basically, each group, all split into A, B, and C, will be playing 2 of the 3 days that we had. Today is day number 3. Group B has already concluded all of their matches, and now we have A and C going up against one another. So 8 teams from A and 8 teams from C will be going into today's group stage. Now, do bear in mind that the bottom 16 teams cumulative of all of those 3 groups will go down to the sudden death round, and that is where you keep all of your points from the group stage and then you fight to try and get a top 8 placement so you can join the previous top 8 from that group stage that have already gone through into the grand final, and that's where the money starts racking up, Toffees.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a shot at the 150, you got to get to the finals. Points reset, so that's the good news. You don't have to stress out about Ninjas in Pajamas or STK being unbeatable at that point.
Yeah.
But you need to get there, and I think that's where some of these teams are getting in a little bit of trouble is, all 16 who don't make it into the first cut, they still have a chance, right? But you only have 6 more games to add to your current totals. So Envy, for instance, I think they're probably going to be in the bloodletting round, but they have a decent point score right now. They're not going to have to work as hard, but they're going to have to be very worried because a team like Bluebees, who may very well end up down there as well, is going to be playing very aggressive. They've got to make up 12 games worth of points in just 6. So that means they're going to be doing a lot of things that you can't predict. So it's like I say, stay out of open qualifiers, stay out of these sorts of elimination rounds. It's the best way to stay safe.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Avenger, before we head over to the teams?
Well, it's very interesting. We have kind of a set top 8 already, but there's 21 points from the current 8 down to the next team that is playing today. So it's not like we're quite certain that we're going to see ends in the sudden death, but I'm curious to see how many is actually going to overtake. How many teams are going to be bumped down because of the matches today. So that's I'm really looking forward to see.
Let's take a look at the seeding here of our teams and how they've all kind of shaped up coming into the FACEIT Global Summit. Of course, as we do have our groups highlighted here. Now, again, it does bear repeating, and eventually when we get onto the standings, you'll see that Group B has concluded their matches. It's Groups A and C that we're going to be focusing on today, and we have not got an opportunity to see Group A for a little bit of time. So now they've had a day's worth of rest. They're going to be able to come in against Group C. And here's how the standings, in terms of the seedings of how they came into the tournament, do place. Anybody who is number 1 was able to become a champion in their region, and then, of course, it filters on down from there. So, exciting stuff. Guys, it's time to look at the leaderboard, all importantly here, because as you can see, oh, yes, nice. Look at that. So, anything with a padlock behind it, this is like a game show. Anything with a padlock behind it, those scores are locked. It is a done deal for them here for the group stage. So MP5, Brazilian Crusaders, they are guaranteed to be going into the elimination stage. Anything without a padlock behind it means that they still have 6 games to play, which are all happening today, Toffees.
The left side is the right side. Just keep remembering that for the rest of the day. If you're in that left 8, it's all dreams and caviar wishes as you go through to the next round. That said, the cutoff, if you stand right now, if you flex out points per game, is sort of the best comparison we have, about 6.3 is where the cut's coming in. So if you're a team below that, figure out how to get above it. And if you want to guarantee that you're in the left column, you've got to, I think, be putting up numbers around 7.5 points per game. And that's a tall order for some of these guys down here at the bottom, like Incognito and OMG, who've racked up a total of 10 or 18 respectively total.
Yes. It's a scary moment potentially for them, of course, as they will be going down towards that elimination stage. Avenger, what do you take away from this here?
It's just how impressive it is from Shoot to Kill and NIP to have such an amazing game, both being in the top 4 after just 6 games. So them being able to make a further lead, we'll just guarantee them right now they're 100% going to the grand finals. Also say, I would say Africa Freaks, I would say they're probably also safe because I thought we were going to see 8 teams jump ahead of them.
I agree. I think today's a big day for Ninjas in Pajamas as well as STK, just in the sense of they now have some freedom to maybe scare some people about the final stage. And I think STK does have a little bit to prove. I'll play a little devil's advocate against my own region here. They got a lot of circles on that first day. They drop in Severny. They got 2 circles immediately right on top of them. The Miramar circles also supported them. So they're getting a little bit of backlash sort of in the forums and the fan world of, well, they just got lucky. Now, I argue the third game, they won. They did really well. They got 12 kills in a tough rotation, but they need to go out today and I think earn a few more big points or big games to show everyone that they are as strong as they are and maybe make people a little bit scared of them in the finals.
Let's take a look at the schedule here for today because it is the same as our previous 2 days. We will start 3 games with Miramar, and then we will have that slight intermission in the middle, and then we will go to 3 games of Erangel afterwards as our 16 teams vie for the points here to get things going. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic, seeing Group A going up against Group C. And of course, once again, we've had the great opportunity to kind of pick out some names that we think might be some of the movers and shakers here. Movers and shakers, Avenger, here from Group A and Group C. And there's some big names there, not least in someone like Ibiza, of course, who over on Team Liquid right now. Team Liquid, along with Tempo Storm and VSG, are the top 3 teams to try and leap into that grand final top 8 stage.
And I definitely think they're one of the ones to kind of make it today, but they have a task ahead of them. It looks like they're going to be fighting for Pochinki and Erangel. We saw Liquid have a great game, some great games on Miramar, so that's where they really want to stand ahead, because that's why I think they're going to make the difference. So for Ibiza to really pop off today, they need to have an amazing start on Miramar, because then they can take the fight even further into Pochinki. So that's very interesting. But obviously, we have these 5 other guys that we're showing to watch today: Ibiza, Starlord, Juxi, Purdy Curdy, and Long.
Well, actually, Starlord is somebody that I really want to talk about as well, because he had a mixed bag yesterday. You know, there was holding of the AWM, but then there was the M24 raining down havoc from the sky in a game where, for all intents and purposes, Toffees, they did not really have the best of starts, but they made the best of it.
I mean, I think a lot of PSG came with a lot of expectation. They were an analyst's favorite. They were a crowd favorite. They're still doing relatively well. I think Starlord maybe had a little bit of jitters getting up and running there. But I want to personally believe that the Frankie pep talk, where she challenged him on his choices, has made him stronger. Because honestly, he did come out far more aggressive in the next game. And I think James made a joke online where he said, he probably found out he got to do another interview with Frankie and was like, well, I'm definitely going to get some kills and try to win this one.
I feel like Starlord was like, this little English lady's having a go at me. I'll make sure I step up my game. And of course, another name that we really do want to highlight as well is Purdy. His day number 1 Avenger was absolutely fantastic, not least this play.
Especially this play here, where he was kind of allowed to push forward. And I talked to the Ents guys afterwards, and they were surprised that he was allowed to go this forward and throw nades, puts an immense amount of pressure on them. And of course, this amazing win from them on Miramar. And on top of that, he had 16 kills in just 6 games.
And to give a real quick highlight shout out here, often when we look at these highlights and our featured players, it's the big fragger. It's not the IGLs, it's not the strategy man. In this case, it is. He's making the shot calls and he's hitting the shots. And that deserves an extra little shout out there to see an IGL who's willing to put his lead where his mouth is.
Definitely, definitely. Now, before we do get into our first game, now, of course, we're not on Erangel just yet, but I want to bring highlight to this. there was a bit of things going on on Twitter last night
Bants.
between Cloud9 and Team Liquid. Talk to me, because this is setting up for later on, which is going to be in a very exciting kind of conclusion, I think, here to the group stage.
So there's multiple things to it, right? So Liquid, they're obviously looking to be in both the next PUBG Classic and the global event. So they're here to make a statement. They want to make sure, and they want to tell the world, well, we're in Pochinki and we're not leaving it, and we're going to give you a hard time. So if you're here to win money, we're probably going to make sure that you don't win that much, because we're going to give you a hard time, right? And on top of that, in the leagues, you can fight for it as long as they want. But here, and James was actually on Reddit saying this, like they're willing to not throw the whole event, but they're willing to not go for the first place for this event.
Fight tooth and nail for Pochinki.
Exactly, because they want to make a statement for Pochinki.
I mean, the direct quote, if you want to go read the post yourself, it literally says, we don't care about this tournament. Now, I don't believe that. I think that there's a lot of mind games that go into these things. C9 and Liquid have been exchanging like little grins in the lobbies of the hotel. Honestly, their meme war last night on Twitter was epic.
Great.
If you did not see it, I recommend just search Jeems or Nerf, and you will have a ball reading all of those things. Nerf's finisher his coup d'etat was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That said, though, it does make sense. Liquid was second at PGI, and they were unhappy with that. They said, you know what, we're not the best in the world. We're going to make a change because we think we need to. All that matters is winning the next world championship. And part of that is going to be making everyone else in the entire world know Pochinki belongs to us from here till eternity, and I think that's what they're committed to this week.
Yeah, it's a very exciting potential for later on, Avenger. I'm going to cut you off there for a moment, as we do now check in with our backstage reporters, sideline reporters, expert reporters. Regardless, it's D-Man and Scoom. Boys, how are you doing?
Doing very well. We're backstage once again, checking everything out. For me, I'm more interested in checking out how the guys down the bottom of the table, the Rangers, OMG, Enters, these massive teams that have come into this tournament with huge expectations, all had terrible first days. They've got to kill it today.
Yeah, I mean, first seed OMG and OP Rangers from their specific region, and today is going to be the day that they need to step up. I think it's going to be really tough for them to get top 8, but at least be in a good position to get into elimination stage.
We're going to be looking towards clashes, of course. You know, Impala's where the Rangers have been dropping. That's Tempo Storm territory. So there's all sorts of clashes. We've been watching the scrims throughout. There's been a number of clashes depending on playing paths. So could be a pretty hot first game.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, gentlemen, here as we're almost ready to go into that first game, in fact. Guys, thoughts and queries before we go into Miramar, Avenger? I'm going to be starting with you.
I'm looking forward to see the hot drops, because I definitely think we're going to see one, especially as Lee just said, in Impala, because I know Tempo Storm, they're willing to fight for it. They want to make a statement again. They want to make sure that this is theirs. They're not contested for the future.
Perhaps. I think that this may be less aggressive than we're used to because of the elimination rounds tomorrow. No one's going to be willing to sort of tank their scores right out of the gate, because you want to go in with the highest point totals just in case tomorrow to come back out in the top 8 of elimination. So expect a little less aggression than we normally see on the last day early on, but I think it'll pick up, especially once we get to a wrangle.
Yeah, there is an exciting opportunity here for teams like Tempo Storm, like Team Liquid and VSG up at the top to try and breach into that position, and then down towards the bottom, of course. So many teams like OMG, NGen, Entus, Force, as well as what we see in OP Gaming Rangers really need to make up the room. Thank you very much, gentlemen, as let's see what we have to my left-hand side. What do we have here for our commentary team? Well, it is going to be Mr. Paperthin and Matrim. Take it away, boys.
Thank you so much, Kalara. So here we are. We're getting everything set to move into our first round of the day. And I got to say, I love PUBG when things are on the line. And that is the great thing about this format. Every day something's on the line.
Right. The last day of the group stage before some of these teams are going to face the elimination stage tomorrow. We're going to get it kicked off with Miramar. And I've got a couple things I want to look at. You know, Avenger mentioned this. Impala might be contested here. Tempo Storm and OP Gaming Rangers both like to drop here. Another thing I'm looking at, the Aerowolves, both of their teams are here today. They've been dropping early, and just wherever the plane starts is kind of where they want to come out. So I'm curious to see how that will play out on this map.
I'm kind of curious if we're going to see Aerowolf versus Aerowolf action happening at some point, you know, kind of going against each other to prove which one is the better team. We've kind of had that happen in North America, where the teams just keep kind of bumping into each other as they move through the map. But I mean, as I was talking to a couple of FACEIT production people, they made a joke towards me. Stevie out there was just like, surprise, surprise, you're so caught up in this, you didn't realize the fact that North Americans getting caught in friendly fire? Who would have thought?
right? You tend to get focused in on your region. You know, I'm very keen on the Korea teams, but I've been trying to watch a lot of the Southeast Asia teams. We don't have Armory Gaming, who had an explosive day yesterday, and they tended to be one of those teams that caused, you know, fits of trouble for other teams because they dropped right to the west of Picado, and there are a lot of teams kind of clustered in that area. We'll see how that opens up today.
Doing that quick pass, as you can see the OMG logo on the side of the building. This is kind of a mean playing path. No, I wouldn't say the most friendly. Anytime it's really far down to the south, a lot of our teams do like to drop around the south. North tends to be a little bit more of the open spot, but makes it a lot harder for these first potential pushes where you can see like it's just a line of people pushing to the north as far as they can go. The question comes into play, where is that circle going to pop at? I mean, it could be cruel and make its way up or over towards El Pozo or maybe back over towards Campo Militar like we saw yesterday, or it might just be a long plane path, in which case everybody gets mad that they have to turn back around.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like we might have something going on here in Impala. It looks like both Tempo Storm and the OP Gaming Rangers might, OP Gaming Rangers have opted to go beyond Impala. You can see DG98, he went into Los Leones, where Incognito, you know, they have it all to themselves. Los Leones is big enough that you can have 2 or 3 teams in there, and you don't really have to clash with each other.
So circle has popped, and nothing too terribly scary. It's just off to the west of where we're at right now, due up straight up in the middle of the map. And we can see that it's going to be Crystal Luster dropping down and getting themselves a bus. We're over there next to El Alzahar, nothing too terribly crazy. We got a couple of people still up in the air. We talked about how important it was going to be trying to stretch to get to your homes. And we still have, what, 3 teams? I think finally just down to 2 as Shoot to Kill has finally landed.
Yeah, and you got Windstrike and the Bumblebees, both who like to go El Pozo, so it looks like they're both kind of heading up that way. Windstrike a little bit ahead of them in the air right now, but a couple members of the Bumblebees do have vehicles. You can see SDK uncontested here in Hacienda. That's been pretty much the story for them. No one really wants to deal with that too much. At NIP, it looks like they're heading to San Martin.
Uncivil's found himself in a bit of trouble as a little bit of bullets coming his way. Uncivil bouncing back and forth between both sides. Inky's trying to take the shots, and look at him trying to juke through, tries to go for the drop shot, but does not get it. So that's going to be 1 member of Shoot to Kill already down.
Yeah, so this is interesting. The Arrow Wolves sent a member, Icky, way up near Hacienda, and I don't think SDK was expecting that because they've been taking that little compound that's to the south of Hacienda there, that warehouse, pretty much, you know, it doesn't seem like they got contested on the first day, and maybe that was something that the Arrow Wolves keyed in on and sent Icky up to try to take advantage of that.
Well, whenever Shoot to Kill was doing their drop, they had NIP that was right next to them as well, so they were kind of caught up and getting separated away from them, and that just allowed Arrow Wolves Icky just to sneak right up back behind it, get himself essentially a free point off of that, but rough start coming out from Shoot to Kill. Shoot to Kill and NIP both had phenomenal day 1s, and it's going to be really interesting to watch them through day 2 because they're sitting pretty comfortable about the fact that they're, let's be honest, they're probably going to be making it straight into the finals. They don't have to worry about the elimination stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a fun thing to see where we had the 2 powerhouse teams from day 1 and day 2 here landing right next to each other on Miramar, seeing how they might have to interact on their rotations. Now, they're not super centrally located in this circle. They're on the northern half, but I'll be curious to see when and how they rotate. They're going to be something you really focus on. Windstrike has opted to not go to El Pozo. They're moving off to the west here to some of these buildings that are way on the western edge of this canyon.
This essentially says, I do not want to fight anyone anytime soon. I'm perfectly fine with taking long rotations. I just want to make sure I keep all 4 members up and we are ready to fight come mid-game or late game. The problem with it is whenever you move that far out, now you have to potentially worry about people that could be along your rotation path and get those. Whenever you have a long rotation like that, it's just a little bit more risk.
Right, and some teams are quite comfortable and good at making those long rotations. VSG is a specialist in this. They have gone way up to the north to Tierra Branca and Torre Ahumada because normally they go La Cobreria, but the plane just went too far south for them to land up there.
You've been practicing these at night, haven't you? I can tell. You're like, every single time you say one, you've got the smile on your face, and you're like, yeah, I got that one. All right, so here's VSG. I know these are your boys. They're running around here. Star-Lord, he's had some flashes of brilliance and then also some flashes of hesitation coming through, but definitely getting more and more comfortable as the event progresses.
Yeah, his natural mode is typically aggression, and that's what I'd prefer to see out of him. You saw him yesterday with that not just taking those shots, and maybe if he could have landed one of those shots, that situation would have been completely different for them against NIP, and they could have taken the win in that round. I liked what I saw from him after that. He was much more aggressive. One time they were a little too aggressive to their own fault, where they pushed onto Armory Gaming, ended up losing 2 members because they got a knock early and thought it was safe to, go and confirm that. Didn't quite work out, but they still ended up getting 3rd place that round.
While OP Rangers are starting their rotation, they are going to have Force just up to the north of them, but that's going to be down inside that plane wreck over there, so really no clear sight lines as that's got the crater around it, so should be a fairly easy rotation. One of the teams I'm really wanting to keep an eye on today is OMG. There was a lot of expectations for OMG. I mean, they've got their banners all across these maps. They had a great job at PGI that they did. And I gotta say, not doing the best so far.
No, it's just been really rough sledding for them. I mean, they're getting caught in transition. They're getting caught in weird team fights. Ooh, Pretty Curdy trying to land some shots here onto the Airwolves, trying to get a little revenge for that early kill they got, but nothing really doing there.
Icky is back behind the rest of their team, so you can see a couple of shots now coming out from Purdy Curdy. This could be the vengeance, but really the spray not connecting too much, so Purdy's just going to retreat back. Looks like he's going to meet up with the rest of his friends, and should be fairly safe. Just a couple of hello bullets back and forth going, hey, I see you.
Trying to get a little revenge, but I like what the Airwolves did here. They dropped a little bit early, and then they just moved up, to the left of Minas Generales. Entis Force generally dropping Minas Generales, but they kind of went more La Bendita this time, kind of avoiding the Airwolves here. What do we got?
Okay, come on. Are we just going to gift Profi and AWM to get this started? Looks like he might make his run up. But yeah, he ran back over and he's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to go for this. There is Jimty that's just off to the north of it, but I don't think it's going to make the push back down. OMG was also around the location as well, but should be fairly safe. Really, there's a lot of hills around it, dropped down into a little bit of a crater, so should be able to get that and make it back out A-okay. Yeah,
I mean, that's about 200 meters from where OMG is to where Profi's picking up that crate. That's a pretty difficult shot to take. I mean, you can see Jemty's trying to take a few shots there on the map, but I don't think anything quite connected there. Ibiza rolling around here. You can see a member of Airwolves a little bit further out. Shura coming up on a vehicle, and Ibiza's trying to rip him off of it. He's got some good damage going. Can't quite get it, though.
Makes it back over the hillside, so should be pretty safe at this point. A couple of shots now coming on the other side of it, and there we go. That's going to be Shura getting taken down. Samty manages to pick that one up, insta-flush it out. So Airwolves get a little bit of aggression at the start, but then has it returned back onto them by Team Liquid. Also, it looks like Incognito is holding out two more members of Airwolves just to the south of this, so they've had to do a complete stop. Nice defense coming up from Team Liquid.
Yeah, an aggressive 1-3 split there from Airwolves T7. You like to take that motorcycle out ahead. This is definitely an Asian region thing where they like to send one player out on that motorcycle. It's a little safer on Miramar than it is on Erangel to do this, just because of the nature of the terrain and that kind of thing. But Team Liquid pounced on it very well.
You can see over on the western part of the map, we have Windstrike and BB kind of caught up in a little bit of a skirmish out inside the blue. We talked about that was kind of the risk that happens whenever you do those really far rotations. And speaking of rotations, we got a car that's rotated upside down. As NIP in a little bit of trouble, but it's going to be Airwolves again. These guys are in every single one of our fights to start the day.
Yeah, Airwolves really doing a great job here, putting the pressure onto NIP. LDK here, looking to get some shots onto those members who wrecked that vehicle. They're stuck in that shack right now, and he's got that SKS trying to do some work.
There we go. You can kind of see Profi now and the rest of the team. Cloud9, they're posted up around the center. Almost every single team has opted into moving as close to center as possible. You see up towards the northeast, we got Tempo Storm right over there next to Crystal Luster as well. Shoot to Kill and NIP all in a general location where they can see each other. Crystal Luster, I think, is aware where Tempo Storm's at, just trying to get a little bit more information off of it. But really, this is a dangerous spot. Nobody from Shoot to Kill taking the shots back up over into this interesting split that they're running right now.
Yeah, Aizhao is, he coming down that hill. He's got the cover, so he's kind of okay here, but now he's got Tempo Storm coming up behind him, and Tango as well, trying to land some of these Car 98 shots, but nothing doing. He's going to head back down the hill and try to get out here and regroup with the rest of Crystal Luster.
Shoot to Kill not taking too many shots in these rotations either, so I would have thought that would have been really bad for Crystal Luster, but New Circle pops, and everybody that moved over towards center really paying off. One thing to note that we need to keep an eye on, where Power Grid is inside of this circle, there is that massive hill that's just to the east and south of it, and that's why a lot of these teams are kind of clustered around these different points. Moving up and down that location is going to be very, very difficult, so teams are going to have to make a choice. Stick to the low ground or move to the high ground.
And what's crazy about sticking to the high ground is even that's pretty dangerous, because it's really flat. From where they are all the way to Power Grid. There is not a lot of cover. There is not a lot of terrain change there. So it's a really difficult position to be in where AHQ and the Airwolves are, in my opinion. Those are really tough positions to rotate in and out of.
So we got to be very careful as we're talking about Airwolves, as we do have two different Airwolves teams that are inside this lobby. We've got 1 and 7, so make sure you keep an eye on that as we're going through this. If you're like, at one point, you're like, I thought that Airwolves was eliminated. That's why a couple of sister teams did manage to make it up into this. So you can see on the other side of this, we're looking at Airwolves 7 looking back this direction. 2 members up on their team had a little bit of casualties off the start of it, but now watching Incognito making a rotation, and again with Waikikimukau, one of the best names inside this lobby.
Waikikimukau is back. I am very happy about that. We can see Avo looking to get some shots onto Joxy. A couple shots landing here, doing a decent amount of damage, but Joxy is able to get out.
Airwolf still holding down. I gotta say, it's really about control over location right now. You really just want to make sure that you take a couple of shots, force people to kind of rotate away from you, or at least start playing a little bit more defensive, so that way you can kind of start claiming territory. Circles are getting smaller and smaller, and we still have 61 people alive. So you have to have some form of defense on your location.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like the Aerowolf 7 might have thought about trying to push in there a little bit after doing that damage. Maybe they wanted the security since they're already down to 2 members of one of those compounds, but it looks like they're backing off, and I think wisely so, because the other 2 members of Incognito are waiting not too far away and could come up and support their members as well.
Right now we have Team Liquid running a 2-2 split. M249 already inside that crate there. Somebody might, I don't think anybody might actually see that one. That's going to be kind of hard to make a pass through. Not too many people like to go back over towards San Martin at this point. So we're going to have to keep an eye out. Maybe somebody might make a rotation over there, Crystal Luster, but Team Liquid's 2-2 split at this stage is what's got my attention. They have a lot of territory control. They're right at the bottom of those foothills that we were talking about a second ago, but there's so many people up and alive. It's going to be very difficult for them to regroup if they have to do so at any given stage.
Yeah, that's an interesting split they've got going, but we've seen some aggressive 2-2 splits really pay off. It paid off for 4 a.m. on the very first day on Miramar, where they got their chicken dinner, where they did something that I thought was pretty wild, and it actually paid off, and they were able to wipe out Cloud9 and 17 Gaming there to secure that win. And VSG here, they have moved to the south west of San Martin. They've taken up a compound. I saw them getting shot at a little bit by Windstrike and Crystal Luster, but they're able to regroup here and set up shop.
You can tell right now everybody wants as many points as they can possibly get and are trying to aim for those placement points right now. Nobody's wanting to be too overly aggressive. Compared to what we saw the first 2 days, this is a very, very casual Miramar. Everybody is just kind of allowing everyone to rotate in, but the problem with it is it means it's just going to get more and more chaotic once these circle shifts start coming into play. You can see Tempo Storm's Maluk already doing a little bit of very forward scouting, running right up next to Team Liquid, running through them as a matter of fact. Going to go ahead and drop off on this, look back around. He is in a 2v1, already at half life. Samty and Abisa are looking around for him at the point. Maluk's taking a couple of shots onto one side of it, does not get the spray down, going for the pre-fire. Samty managed to pick that one up, and that's going to be an easy flush.
Man, that was a really nice quick shot from Samty to get that early damage. 60 damage put out by that shot. Here we see a member of AHQ, CC, putting a little damage into Ibiza, but Ibi is able to get into that house, and he should be able to heal up just fine.
2-2 split does pay off for Liquid as the circle has now popped and just staying right along that hillside. Again, bad stuff coming out for a shoot to kill. They're losing a lot of members, but we have Airwolves 1 getting caught up into a little bit of a fight with them. You can see a lot of damage coming. I think that they only have 1 member up. Yes, Alo is the last guy alive and not inside the safe zone.
Aerowolves 1 looks incredible. They're fighting NIP and STK head on and winning these fights. This is a really strong start for them today.
Oh, Alo, the last guy. We haven't had very many casualties coming into this game so far, but 3 of them have been on shoot to kill, who have had a great day 1. But with this, they now need to figure out where's he going to go? How's he going to sneak in? He's pretty much got to play edge at this point.
Yeah, and he's got VSG and the Aerowolves up there on the northern edge of the circle, as well as Tempo Storm. Here we're jumping on with our Japanese team, playing from the Japanese League BB. They have taken up Power Grid. They've got Windstrike still on their heels, so this has just been kind of a little tug of war here between these 2 teams.
These guys have been going back and forth for about 5 minutes now. Neither one really wanting to firmly commit into the fight. Perfectly comfortable taking just a couple of shots back and forth. Windstrike is inside the safe zone, just not really too comfortably. I mean, they've got a couple of members that can still move forward just a touch, but BB is playing so defensively. You see how they're just holding those angles? That's a lot of information being lost by that member not even willing to go for a peek to have any idea on how anybody's pushing up onto him. Meanwhile, on the other side, looks like we got Crystal Luster and AHQ getting into a little bit of a skirmish.
Yeah, it looks like Crystal Luster took an aggressive rotation into the middle of the circle, but they've taken up kind of part of this flat area in the middle between Power Grid and Picado. Here we're jumping back with BB, still in this little skirmish here with Windstrike. Windstrike, there hasn't been much damage traded between the two of them. A few shots here or there. Windstrike, though, opting to try to rotate around them to the south, and they might run into OMG depending on how far they go.
I am just waiting for the circle to close at this point. I want to see what happens, how everybody has to rotate, because there is near on no space. These guys are all stacked up on top of each other already. This next circle is just going to force everybody just to have to massacre each other just to move 2 feet forward. With this, Team Liquid in a great spot, as well as HQ, Crystal Luster. Aerowolves 1. They've got 2 of their members in a good spot. Everybody else is kind of playing along the edge right now, so it's really going to be about how do these edge teams make their way through. Airwolves 7, you're about to walk right into the back of NIP, and I don't think that that's going to come out too good for you, as Gaxy's taking a couple of shots over towards Godly. That's going to knock them down to just 1 member up, as you can see the Bronco just rolling back down that hillside.
Yep, the last member alive here, Avo, the shot caller for Aerowolves 7, but he is just instantly headshot by Gaxy. Great rip there from him.
And it looks like the Gaxy is already starting to be unleashed at this stage. The new circle has popped, and it is right over here next to NIP, as well as having Team Liquid again pays off with that 2-2 split. But now they have to figure out how do they want to handle this, as there are going to be about, what, I would say 40 people that need to start making their way over to where they're at. You can see the lay of the land with the circles right now. Tons of people up to the north going to need to make their way back down. It's going to be Tempo Storm leading the pack onto that, but Windstrike looking back over towards OMG. OMG doesn't even see it. And look at that. Nookie takes some shot by Cloud, spins back around and says, no.
Wow, what an M24 shot there from Clouds. He's just below the hill, and he just looked up and domed Nookie. Nookie almost dead already because of a nice grenade from Clouds. He confirms the kill. The other members of OMG looking to push up onto Windstrike, who have the high ground on the rocks.
Windstrike has the high ground, but just look at the amount of nades that Cloud has. He is just raining them down on top of him. Every single time they just try to take any shot, you can just see the archers coming right up over for it. Windstrike's having to pull back away from this to kind of regroup at this stage. Nice defense coming out from OMG. They just did not allow anything to happen there, and it looks like Incognito bumped into Team Liquid.
Yeah, and Team Liquid just absolutely annihilated them. That'll be Incognito out in 15th place there. Team Liquid has regrouped, and we're going to take a quick replay of what happened there between Team Liquid and Incognito.
Looks like we've got BBs that are kind of posted up, as well as VSG looking on the side of this. A couple of shots back and forth on one side of it, so BB needs to make their way forward over to where VSG is at. Just to the south of them, you can see it's HQ and Crystal Luster, and everybody is looking back up to where BBs is at. Oh, Alo's just trying to get away. Catching a little bit of airtime. See if he can find anywhere to go at this point. It's going to be Aerowolves 1 looking back towards him, and somehow managed to make the pass over to that. He is just trying to find any little dip that he can hide at this point. That is a lot of damage coming his way, and he's just going to be running straight over, right over to where one of his teammates almost went down at, but he should be able to make it off there just fine. But back over with this BB and VSG fight.
Yeah, VSG, we got Juanita up on the hill here, kind of acting as the forward scout. Star-Lord up on the northern flank, trying to see what he can see, call the shots out for his team as he usually does, trying to watch what BB is doing and make sure that they aren't caught off guard. And you can see Brazilians trying to drive this car up here and get an angle onto their flank as well. So we'll see how this fight pans out. A smoke already going down here for Dangche, who's maybe a little bit more exposed than he wants, but Star-Lord did land a couple shots there onto Brazilian.
Tempo Storm is walking right up back behind this. Doesn't have a very clear sight line as of yet. You can see Sharky's kind of creeping his way up, trying to get a little bit more information. Airwolves 1 still off on that other angle. But look at the sight lines that we've got coming out from OG and Intas Force over here. Looking back down towards OMG. OMG has done a good job on surviving to this stage, but with this, you can see there's a little bit of a rotation coming in. They're going to be right down on the edge of the circle, and these guys are going to be neighbors for quite a while. It's all up on the north, though, is where all of the violence is happening, as BB is trying to make their way forward. Star-Lord hits a couple of nice shots, gets him down off the headshot, but a retaliation grenade comes through, knocks down Star-Lord.
Yeah, here comes BB. They're being really aggressive here. Like they said earlier, they needed to do this. Juanita, though, catching lively. It's going to be a tough push here for BB. They got to go uphill. They do have the knock on the Star-Lord, but the other 3 members are up, and you have Tempo Storm coming up here as well. The kill is confirmed onto Star-Lord.
Juanita's holding a nice angle back over towards this. BB's trying to figure out how they can move forward. The blue is now on top of them. On the other side of this, you can see Windstrike has bumped into Cloud9. Tempo Storm also looking back over onto this fight, wanting to third party inside of it. Slowly creeping forward. They do have a line of sight back over towards Juanita. Can he get the down onto it? But it's actually Crystal Luster that's taking some shots back over towards Tempo Storm. This is just pandemonium up here.
Yeah, BB still with 2 members up. Sato has had a couple of really nice grenades in this fight, but now Tempo Storm trying to third party this. Dangche still alive here, trying to hold on for VSG, who has been completely wiped out otherwise. He is the last surviving member for them, hanging out. They've already got 2 kills. He's got a scar, but he's going to have to find a way to survive this push from BB, who is looking very strong right now.
They've got the angle on this. Tempo Storm still keeping his sight on trying to figure out what's going on over here. Naturally, Tempo Storm can move back over to the circle far easier. The circle has shifted back over towards the east of where we're looking at right now. BB's getting as much loot as they can to move forward. Jang Che is still holding that angle, but not going for any peaks. Very aware in a 2v1 situation, but again, that's just going to allow BB to move right up into their face. On the other side of this, we can see that's going to be Crystal Luster and HQ going back and forth. Jang Che still holding the angle, gets a nice shot back over to one of the members. Can he round it up? And no, he cannot. BB does manage to make it through and take down VSG.
But KR10 is stuck out in the blue. He's taking quite a bit of damage. In the meantime, Crystal Luster pushing up here onto AHQ. Tango already down for Crystal Luster. Weishi trying to push up and get this revive here. AHQ SR looking to see if he can see any of the other members of Crystal Luster, but so far no vision on them because there's a smoke here that's blocking Long.
This is a very long fight. The Blues coming in right back behind them. They have to move forward and they know it. They need to get some necessary downs to push forward off of this. They need to get some type of opening that's coming through, and Winner is just not allowing it as Long almost goes down inside of that exchange.
Yeah, this is a really close battle here between these two teams. Winner doing a little bit more damage. K3 knocked over on the left flank here. Crystal Luster getting forced by the blue to make a move. So let's see if they can make this work. Winner trying to defend this angle.
Winner, such great shots coming through. Walks around the corner, does see CC go down, but follows it right up. So with this, HQ is holding this angle. It is just him and SR. The blue is now right up on top of them. You can see SR throwing out the grenades, trying to get them, and it does manage to get that. So Crystal Luster is now eliminated. HQ can now turn around and walk that direction, but it's going to be Tempo Storm that's holding an angle onto them. Remember, they were watching a lot of these fights. They just moved down to just get into a position to gatekeep them out. So now HQ's having to use a lot of smokes just to make a couple of feet forward.
I mean, what an impressive fight there from Winner, doing a great job dipping and ducking between the building edges, doing some good work onto Crystal Luster. They end up winning that battle, but Tempo, oh, Sharky is landing some absolutely nasty shots onto AHQ here.
Now it's just SR, the last member up. I take that back. AHQ has been eliminated by Tempo Storm on a nice hold there. With this, you can see Aerowolves does hear what's going on, as well as Windstrike. So here's the circle and the way it's looking right now. NIP in a great position. Team Liquid is all regrouped. OP Rangers off down towards the south, as well as Force on the one angle of it. Cloud9 has been absolutely dominant on the other side of this fight. So Windstrike now looking back down towards Team Liquid.
Yeah, it looks like a member of Force got a knock onto C9 there. Songjung got Profi into a knock. We've got Team Liquid as well, kind of blocking C9 from entering the circle. Profi going down here from Yak. They confirm that kill. Here we've got Windstrike putting some pressure on the Team Liquid as well. And I believe that's the OP Gaming Rangers they're battling with.
We've got Team Liquid that's going to have to move just a little bit forward. Windstrike, they had to make such a long rotation. They took a couple of casualties as they made their way over to it, but they are now safely inside this zone and can keep out. Two different teams at this point. They have Tempo Storm that's up above them, not the best sight lines back down on these angles. So you can see the way that Abisa is looking around, trying to figure out what's going on. We've got Force and OP Rangers on the other side of it. It's going to stall their repositions. Meanwhile, Zampa's up on top of this high ground, just raining down bullets. Nice shots coming out from Zampa. Good Lord.
Whoa, that is one heck of a headshot, but he gets the kill stolen by Ibby for all of that hard work he did with that SLR. That is heartbreaking for Zampa. Oh my goodness. All right, now Ibby putting some more shots on the C9. They are able to get behind that hill, but he does land a little bit of damage. Tamaria getting knocked here in transition by Entis Force Kale. It looks like the Korean teams might brush up with each other and NIP here.
We've got NIP smack dab in the middle of this circle, so getting some nice shots. Grenades are going to come back down onto this. OP Rangers are going to be eliminated now. Lots of control coming out for NIP, but it's the guys on the high ground that are just murdering anybody that has to move across that road. You can see taking some shots back down towards Miraku. That's going to be Zampa. Go ahead and flushing him out.
Zampa absolutely on fire with that SLR. James got one of his own. He's looking for some members of Force who have a very, very difficult rotation to make here. The circle is not friendly to them or their other Korean team, OP Gaming Rangers. Yak going down here to Nerf, in fact. Gaxi trying to get it, but it's Sharky who ends up stealing that kill.
There is just one member of Force alive, and that is Kale, and there are a ton of people looking back Kale's direction. See, the way everybody is posted up along these hills, there's a lot of verticality that's coming into play. Grenades are starting to come out here. Looks like Kale does manage to get eliminated by the blue zone. So Team Liquid slowly creeping their way up and forward, looking back up that hillside. Lobes goes down inside of that exchange. So now it's just going to be Nerf on that angle, and he gets taken down as well as Cloud9 goes out in 6th.
Cloud9 going down to Windstrike, who made a great rotation, like you mentioned earlier, to make it here. BB went a different path. They ran into the buzzsaw of VSG and Tempo Storm and got taken out. Windstrike getting some extra points because of their smart rotation, but now they've got Team Liquid pushing Tempo Storm above them. Here come the grenades from Team Liquid.
There we go. Liquid slowly pushing forward. Grenades are now starting to come out from the Tempo Storm guys up above it, but Team Liquid does not care. They are just walking right up into Windstrike. Gonna take the shots onto it, and Windstrike is now eliminated. That drops us down to 4 different teams. We've got Tempo Storm up on the top of it, still taking shots back down towards EB and flushes him out. NIP slowly making their way forward. All the attention has been kind of drawn to what's been going along on these sides, and that's allowed NIP just to rotate into spot after spot.
Yeah, and what's crazy, Aerowolves T1, they're still in this up on the hill. They've been hanging around for forever up on this northern side, maintaining control of it, having a very strong start here to day number 3.
Tempo Storm still holding that high ground. Aerowolves being very quiet over here next to it. NIP making their way into the circle, but we've got Team Liquid that really has a ways to go. No clear path. As you can see, grenades are just raining down. Nowhere for them to really push forward too easily. If they move away from this wall, that means that Tempo Storm and Aerowolves can take some shots at them. But it's Gaxi that's just holding this angle right up in their face, dropping all these grenades down. I gotta say, he's probably about 20 meters away from Jeems at this point. Jeems is playing up a little bit of a high ground spot, trying to see if he can catch him as he moves. Meanwhile, the other members of NIP just hanging back in some smokes right now, having to contend with all of these snipers along the hillside.
Right, this is so difficult for NIP here. The good news is there's quite a bit of varying terrain to work with on the defense. The bad news is things like this happen and Jeems lands a grenade right on top of him.
Looks like a follow-up grenade's gonna come through, but Sharky and Tempo Storm are just unrelenting up towards the top of it. Samty's taking a lot of damage as well. Gaxi's as good as dead at this point, but Team Liquid somehow is crawling their way into the circle, surviving against all odds, just trying to make it from tree to tree, from little dip to dip. Tempo Storm can connect with the shots, but just can't quite get the downs. Meanwhile, Jeems gets a nice shot back over onto Gaxi, flushes him out. We have one of the members of Tempo Storm also get knocked up towards the top, so this might be that moment. Team Liquid finally gets a chance to breathe, regroup, get their meds up, as they're probably going to have to push again in just 1 second.
Yeah, it seems like all of the teams have kind of found themselves a nice little relatively safe spot in the circle. Quite a bit of utility has already been used here, so we aren't seeing too many grenades right now because most of them had already been flung. NBS here trying to see if he can get a shot onto a Tempo Storm member. Not quite landing much on Zampa there.
Nice flank position coming out for them. They might be able to end up kind of catching Team Liquid off guard. We'll have to keep an eye on how this goes. Sharky's just looking for that grenade. They've got range for days on those grenades from this high ground. That could land right back down next to Jeems. Going to roll a little bit, does some damage. Not going to get too much damage off onto it. New circle has popped. No surprise, it's actually moving over towards NIP. They have gotten a lot of favorable circles moving into this round so far. It's almost like the circles love them at this point. PlayerUnknown himself is just like, okay, NIP, you don't have to move, but we want to see Team Liquid continue this trek that they have to go through these high grounds. But it's going to be Tempo Storm already on the move, bumps right over into Airwolves. Nice shots coming out from that. Sharky does go down. I don't know if your boy Dre is going to be able to make anything push off of that. Nope, he's going to get taken down as well. Nice bit of defense coming out from Airwolf.
Wow, Katao doing a great job there, defending against the push from Tempo Storm. They've been playing a quiet game, but it's really panning out for them. They've still got 3 members left. Here comes Zampa, looking for a little revenge onto the Airwolves from up above, but right now it's a little dangerous for him to push. Team Liquid trying to get eyes onto NIP, and the Airwolves, they're perfectly content. They're in the circle. They can just wait.
This is great for Team Liquid. This fight happening on this hillside has now allowed them to make their way easily inside the circle. So now, Zampo right up above Airwolves, and they are firmly aware of it. You can see everybody's looking back up on this. Jeems still kind of hunting around like, okay, what happened up towards the top? Why is nobody coming after me anymore? A couple of grenades going back and forth now as Jeems just trying to spot out one of them. This one might kind of, no, it's going to blow up just a bit too soon. So Team Liquid right up next to NIP. So a couple of shots now coming back and forth. Zampa finally decides, okay, that's it. They know where I'm at. I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple of shots back over onto this. And here comes a couple of shots from Airwolves in return. Back and forth. Everybody's just trying to spot each other out. Zampa has the hard part about this as he has to look essentially at his feet to get the down and cannot get it. So Airwolves gets control over the high ground.
Yep, and in the meantime, a grenade landing onto Samty there. Zampa does go down, but Team Liquid, still 2 members up here. Quite a few grenades left. I'm a little surprised. I saw so many grenades flying out. I forget that these teams tend to keep around 19 grenades at a time. But James, oh my goodness, he blew himself up.
Tried to go for the throw, and that's going to take him down. So with this, you can see Airwolves now going to have to start making their way from the top of this. NIP is just holding right in the middle of this. Yimpty's way back in the back over there. He's the last member standing up for Team Liquid. Airwolves making their way down this hillside. They have the numbers advantage, but NIP has the terrain. So we have to keep an eye out on how everybody's going to be moving. RDK is around this one side flank. NBS, Vard have to be aware of where he's at. It's just a peak battle back and forth. NBS gets a little bit of damage, and it's going to be actually NBS going down just narrowly. Icky stands up, goes back after Vard, and that's going to be NIP eliminated. Now it is just Team Liquid off of one side, sitting on 1 health. Nowhere to go as the blue zone comes in and takes him down.
I mean, there you go, Airwolves. There you go, Indonesia. There is a win for you with 9 kills. What a game from them. What a hip fire from RDK there at the end to get that first knock onto NIP. That was really impressive.
That peak battle right back and forth between Airwolf and NIP is so hard. You have to have an idea on how you're going to connect with the heads. People are bouncing back and forth. There's a lot of verticality that comes into play with it, and it was such a narrow victory coming out from Airwolves there, but Team Liquid, I have to say, those guys survived a horrible experience just trying to make it inside those last couple of circles.
Yeah, they were just getting rained upon with grenades from Tempo Storm and other teams from above, and they just weathered the storm and they were able to get into that second place position with 11 kills.
I see what you did there. Weathered the Tempo Storm. All right, so we got NIP that came in 3rd place, Tempo Storm in 4th, and Windstrike in 5th. Windstrike, remember, they had that long push that went over to the west, then they had to make their way back in the circle. They were kind of caught up fighting BB for a long period of time. That is a long period of time for them to have to be fighting, what I want to say, essentially since halfway through Circle 1?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's maybe the most impressive thing that happened this round for me was Windstrike's rotations. Getting to 5th place in and of itself is super impressive considering BB was doing a good job just boxing them out the whole way.
I mean, again, Airwolves 1 comes up with a great performance, coming out with 9 kills, 1st place positioning on it. They played that high ground very well. They had a great position that I want to say that they really had a good idea on how to play around the terrain specifically, because you remember whenever Tempo Storm was actually pushing back over to Airwolves, they had a nice peek back and forth, took down 2 of their members off of a very solid defensible position, caught them out as they were making their way forward, really forced Zampa to kind of hang out back there. Really, they caught a lot of these teams very unaware as they were making these pushes back down these hillsides.
Yeah, it just kind of the slow but steady wins the race here.
Yeah.
They didn't overextend. They were very cautious. They moved up. They took positions that they knew they could defend very easily. And the circle, it went a little bit their way, but not a lot. And they were able to defend a lot of pushes from other teams. And in the end, make that aggressive push to take out NIP and Team Liquid.
I gotta say, Team Liquid, that was just, sure, they didn't necessarily get the win off of it. They got the 2nd place, but good Lord, the way that they played that low ground with so many different teams taking shots at them, by all regards, they should have probably been dead 5 or 6 spots back. But somehow they managed to figure out ways to survive through that. And it wasn't just based off of smokes. This was all just knowledge of terrain and how to shift through it, taking the shots off. They were covering each other. Like one would take a couple of shots to kind of force Tempo Storm back, and the other one would rotate through. That is very hard to do with that many people taking shots.
It's so hard, and it's really impressive to get it done. I mean, it's kind of a fun area for the circle to end up on Miramar because there's so many dips and there's all this different terrain to work with, very high to very low, and a couple trees and rocks and other things in there. So you have this really exciting ending that we got to see because of that. So I loved that. That was a lot of fun.
Miramar can sometimes start a little bit slow, but when you get those really hill-based endings, oh my God, there is just so much. It's so great to watch how these players have such map knowledge and know how to move from position to position and how tactical they are whenever they move through it.
Yeah, right. They know kind of how those crevices, twist and turn and how to navigate them, where the most safe way to take, the path will be, and to keep your head under cover, especially when you're in those low positions like Team Liquid and NIP, where, it's really important to know how the terrain changes, because otherwise you're going to walk up over a hill and just get shot.
I just felt really bad for whenever we saw, I think it was around Circle 5, we had that hillside that was in play. Everybody was kind of in the low grounds or in the high grounds. And then there were all those people that were across the road. And you just saw there was I want to say about 15 people that were just like, okay, you have to walk across a plane? That's not going to work.
All right, guys. Well, we are ready for an interview with the Airwolves. Kato.
That is exactly right, guys. I'm here with Kato from Aerowolf 1. That was an incredible performance by you guys. Are you pleased with that result?
Happy nggak dengan resultnya jadi nomor 1?
Ya tentu saja happy lah, karena kan nggak expect kita bisa dapat chicken kayak gitu tadi.
So he's very pleased with the result, and he did not expect it that he could actually achieve number 1 today.
Because you guys, you haven't had a first place finish yet. What were you thinking coming into today, considering this is the first match?
Sebelumnya kan nggak pernah nomor 1, baru hari ini bisa nomor 1. Tadi waktu datang ekspektasinya gimana? Karena kan ini pertandingan pertama.
Ekspektasinya sih bisa masuk top 5. Tapi karena kami dapat spot gitu kan, jadi kita bisa nembak-nembak gratis. Habis itu kita bisa spot-spot musuh karena di high ground. Ya jadi dari situ sih kita bisa menangnya tadi.
Okay, the expectation was he's gonna be the top 5, but today I think he's quite lucky that he could get lots of spot to do some fragging. So yeah, he's very pleased with the result.
Well, I just want to talk about that final circle. That was very hectic, and you guys looked like you might have had a positional disadvantage there. Can you talk me through what happened and what you were planning on doing there?
Tadi waktu yang circle terakhir, sebetulnya ada area yang nggak menguntungkan, tapi terus hasilnya oke. Tadi gimana caranya?
Karena kita tahu di depan itu banyak orang gitu di bawah, karena aku udah nginfoin di bawah itu ada 3 orang. Habis itu karena tahu di situ, aku stay di high ground buat ngevisionin, jadi anak-anak bisa nembak semua. Jadi karena dari situ kita bisa menang.
Ulangin lagi, sorry.
Jadi karena kita di atas kan, di bawah itu ada 3 orang sisa tadi. Jadi karena ketahuan gitu dan teman-temanku ada di bawah 2, jadi aku stay di high ground dan karena itu kita menang.
Okay, because he was staying on the high ground, and then he got 2 other friends at the lower place, and then he could
vision the enemy.
Vision the
enemy.
Okay, vision the enemy, and then that's why they can achieve the good result today.
Well, that was an incredibly impressive result. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. Kaleris, let's break that one down back at the desk.
Aerowolf managed to get themselves the chicken dinner there at the very end. Great stuff by them. They held on to that position fabulously when it came to the high ground, and they were able to execute effectively. Basically acting as gatekeepers against Tempo Storm, especially where Kato was able to get all of those kills.
Tempo Storm had the high ground, and they were causing all kinds of trouble for Ninjas in Pajamas and Liquid. They took, I think, thank goodness for the vest update, if we've ever seen an action piece about that, because the amount of bullets that chest shotted from Zampa there was crazy. But those guys were smart. They held a position. They locked up the only down ramp from where Tempo Storm was, and he got the triple. So a big shout out to Kato for just really killing it there. Yeah. And I think that set them things in motion for them, because once they had 3 and the Ninjas in Pajamas and Liquid just got forced fighting it out and had no other options but to kill each other, it was a nice little cleanup for Aerowolf.
I really love this circle. This is like a perfect circle of Miramar, where you have like a very high ground, and then you have like a lower ground where there's like still high ground compared to there, and you kind of have to make a decision, because you could see Liquid was leaving a guy behind to make sure that the guy on like far top, the Tempo Storm guys, that they didn't make too much damage on the guys pushing forward, which is really important. Otherwise, they're just going to look down and just take a shot at everyone.
Well, actually, let's take a look at how the circle did progress throughout this game as well, because, as you say, it was a great start actually here to day number 3 for this.
So we had a really rough plane here to begin with. Eastern to southwestern, very far, and then we have a very central circle, and it kind of ended close to where like the circle was in this like center. So it's centered up, it kept centered up, and that means there's so many teams that have to make a decision. What was really curious to me that we had this road here for very long, where Liquid decided to be on the left side of the road here in this compound. And this circle especially, this is where you have to decide which side of the road do I stay on, because if I have to cross it late, I'm gonna have no cover, I have to take a car, and I have to just make a run for it.
So this area right here, specifically where this circle is, we like to call Death Valley, because you're forced to make very tough decisions. So that whole area around here is sort of like this Bermuda Triangle around Picado. Everyone dies in transition. Right here, you have to choose, and this is what we see. Right side, and if left side, it's high ground or low ground. Incognito, for instance, chose the right. They got massacred by Liquid when they were forced to try to cross the road. Then as the game advances, you have to say, which way does the circle go? As you advance the circles here, you see it go towards the hills.
Yeah.
Had it gone the other way, Tempo, Liquid, Aerowolf would have all been killed. This is literally one side or the other. Choices are everything.
You got to give kudos, I think, to NIP's spread, considering they had one like linchpin on the other side of the road to try and make their transition a little bit easier, just in case it were to shift.
And that's how you survive Death Valley, right? You don't walk through the desert and hope that that one bottle you started with is enough water. You have somebody drop them off along the way. You make sure that there's a little extra something to drink a little way through your journey. And that's what they did. They sent the man out there. He held the spot, and they were able to cross the road. Also, good uses of smokes to make that happen. But like I said, this was a very, very hard final circle to play. And if you're at home watching your favorite teams, do not be mad at them if they went out in that sort of 5th, 6th, 7th position because they chose the wrong side. That's just a very tough situation.
Let's take a look at our highlights here, brought to you by NVIDIA. Once again, Avenger. What do we have at the beginning?
Very unfortunate here for Shoot to Kill to lose this guy. And it actually kind of, there was a snowball effect for them because it turned out to be a very bad game for him to begin with. But we have like a lot of very interesting engagement where you could see it's fight for position in the circle. It's fight for transition spots. It's fight for high ground spots. And here as well, Samty, in this compound here, there were 2 guys and they come out at advantage because they were 2 versus 1 and they could really pull Maluk down there. Here, very interesting to see Nuki. He got one player down, but Clouds immediately returned that headshot onto Nuki, and that was the win strike kind of OMG fight, which, unfortunately for OMG, made them go out in 11th place.
Yeah, I mean, I think Winstrike will probably advance, in my opinion. They've been putting up pretty good numbers. They're consistent, even when they make, an uncomfortable choice in terms of their placement there. Liquid, they went out in second, but they still got 11 kills. Ninjas in Pajamas with 8. That seems like the European teams here have started to really adjust to Miramar at an alarming rate that I think maybe some of the other teams aren't as prepared for. They thought they'd have a little more of a buffer.
OP Gaming Rangers having a hard time just before as well. And here is Katu getting himself a few of the TS members here as Tempo Storm had very few options of being able to get down from this location.
0 options. They had to hard push. Sharky could have had no way of knowing. And finally, Zampa either dives to the blue or pushes. At the end of the day, he made the choice he had to make, and they come out on top.
Brought to you all by NVIDIA. Plenty more teams to talk about as well here from our first game of the day. Of course, we saw NIP with a great position in terms of them not only getting themselves even more points, but even more consistency. Getting a 3rd place after already having a blinder of a day 1 is very, very commendable.
It looks so far to be like it's going to be very certain that NIP is going to take the top of the stage. They're 100% going to go through to the grand finals right now. Like they're going to pass everyone. But them being able to be on the eastern side and then still get over there with 2 and 3 guys in the end is very impressive in this kind of circle.
I mean, they're improving, and they're an Erangel team. Like, these guys do about 15 points per game on Erangel, and then they come to Miramar, and they had an alarming day yesterday with 9 to 10. And now they come out with another huge game that's going to raise it to probably 12 on Miramar. I am terrified, and that's, I think, what the goal is for Ninjas in Pajamas today, is to show everyone else worry about us when it comes to the finals, and they're doing a heck of a job.
Let's focus down briefly on Aerowolf as well, because they're a team that really garners a lot of respect here from this game. They didn't, go out and actually have to push too far across the circles and things like that, but they found their place, they knew exactly how to exploit it, and they were able to get plenty of damage done from that spot.
Honestly, for me here, the decision-making early, being able to be on the northwestern side here, locking down early, I'm quite sure that was also the Aerowolf team that made it really hard for Shoot to Kill as well in the beginning. And on top of that, this clever push here, and also what we saw towards the end, the left peak and not aiming down the side, but this was just here from RDK. Just taking him down there and winning the 1 versus 2 was impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the trap was smart, but you bring up a good point, Martin, that I think a lot of us have become so accustomed to the ADS, the fact that we just hit that right mouse button every time we shoot. There's a lot of validity. If somebody's standing less than 3 or 4 meters away from you, honestly, it's kind of a waste of time and a harder control point. He just leaned, pre-fired, took his opponent down, and brought the win. And honestly, a big shout out to them, because I talked to the coach, the same coach for both Aerowolves, okay? They both came in with the same points per game average and score today.
23?
Yep, so they're literally coming in exactly the same, so I guess good job, coach, in terms of consistent coaching. But he said, we have high expectations for Aerowolf 7, but not as much for Aerowolf 1. They are a team that's growing and training and sort of building for the future. So to have them take a giant jump over their sort of sister team in the first game is going to be a big mental win for them.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw at the very end there, they were kind of almost very ecstatic about the win there. It's got to feel very, very good to come into the final day of the group stage here, Avenger, as kind of one of the underdog teams. You came in as a replacement into the tournament after some visa issues were occurred elsewhere. And, you know, getting a win on this final day, potentially for the groups, is great.
We talked about it here in the beginning as well. I think it's very important to notice that these guys, they're going to have a blind of a day to make it into the top 8. But they're grinding points right now. They want to make sure that they get to the grand final. They want to represent their region. And getting a start from this, if they can just get about 20, 30 points more the rest of the day, they're going to be in the top of the sudden death group, which will only they will only have to get like 20 points-ish on the last day. Then we'll make it to the grand final just based off that. So this is a blind off start for them.
Well, gentlemen, it is time to go to a short break here, and when we return, we have more games to go. 5 more games, in fact, 2 of Erangel later on. In fact, 3 of Erangel later on, as well as 2 of Miramar soon to come. Join us after this, ladies and gentlemen. The FACEIT Global Summit returns in just a moment.